This is Wayne Kimmel, managing partner of 76 Capital, and this is another one of our 76 Capital Leadership Series. Really excited you're here and joining us. We have a really special guest today. We have Reggie Love. You're going to hear Reggie's whole story. Reggie has won a national championship basketball. He won the national championship at Duke in basketball. He also then went on and was the personal assistant, or as many of us call it, the body guy for President Barack Obama. Incredible stories there. And then we'll hear what he's doing now within his business at HRS Management with Josh Harris. And really excited to talk with him about that. But before we get started, as we always do on our 76 Capital shows, we talk about the news. We talk about what's happening within the sports industry. And as everything that we do at 76 Capital, we're constantly always thinking about, how can we get you involved with a lot of the things that we're doing. At 76 Capital, we're a venture capital fund that invests in startup and early stage technology companies, really looking at what's happening as the next thing in sports. We want to talk with people that are thinking about how they're starting companies in the sports tech industry, in the sports betting industry, and of course in the esports industry. So we're excited about all the things that we're doing right now. You can follow all the exciting things that are happening at 76 Capital on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and of course on our YouTube channel. So subscribe to that so you can catch all the great shows that we put out on 76 Capital. So this week, there's been some really interesting things happening. One of our portfolio companies, US Integrity, which is a third-party integrity company for the sports betting industry, has done a deal with Betfred. Really excited about this partnership where Betfred's going to be providing US Integrity with all of their betting data, so we can make sure and detect that there are no problems or any sort of irregularities with the things that are going through their systems. That's what US Integrity does, and we love what their CEO, Matt Holt, and the team are doing at US Integrity. Another thing that happened this week was pretty amazing. The announcement of the MLS, the Major League Soccer. Major League Soccer has given a date, and they're gonna be back. July 8th in Orlando. It's all starting. It's pretty amazing. It's going to be on ESPN. You'll be able to see a lot of those games. You'll see them across a lot of the different ESPN channels. And hey, as we've been saying, we want sports back, and we're really excited that sports is back, and it's coming back in a big way. And of course, you can watch all of our 76 Capital Leadership Series shows every Wednesday, every Sunday at 7 p.m. We go release our shows. We go live at those times. But of course, you can watch our shows at any time on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, as well as LinkedIn, where we have many of all of our guests that we have over the past several months that we've had the show around. And the show's been great, and we've had some incredible leaders and sharing with all of us the things that they've done in the sports world to make them successful, as well as their organizations. And today, we're super excited to bring on Reggie Love. Well, welcome, Reggie, to our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Series. We're really excited to have you on, and it's great to see you.
Yeah, no, well, look, I got to tell you, it's been a hard 5 months, man. I think the last thing I did was I went to the Duke Carolina game, and me and my dad, we were getting ready for the ACC tournament, and then the world shut down. And I kind of laughed because I said to one of my colleagues, I was like, look, if folks aren't playing, if people aren't playing the ACC tournament, no one's going to be going to work. It's like, because basketball in North Carolina is religion, and if you can't show up for religion, you're definitely not showing up for work.
Yeah, it's been a crazy time, and it was an amazing time last summer when we met out in California at the Sports Business Journal event, when you spoke and you talked about your book, which I've really enjoyed, and thank you so much for sending me a signed copy of it. I've enjoyed it, and you got some great stories in here, and I can't wait to hear about some of them.
No, well, I appreciate that, Wayne, and look, what a different time we are in right now. It seems like just the other day we were in California for SBJ. That was a lot of fun. Now, the one thing I will say, golf has not slowed down. I think during COVID, I think golf has seen a little bit of a resurrection.
So are you a golfer?
I am now. The gyms aren't open, man.
Well, it's funny.
I played more golf in the last 3 months than I've played in the last 5 years.
Well, it's funny you say that, because one of my good friends, and he was actually on our show along with one of his original coaches and mentors, Phil Martelli. My friend, his name is Monte Ross, who's the associate head coach at Temple. And Monte was telling me, he says, I play golf, every day that ends with a Y, so it's so he's been having a great time out there. We've been working here at 76 Capital. We're really excited about some of the things that we're doing. We've been actually, made a lot of progress with a lot of the different businesses that we've invested in, and done a really lot of interesting things. I'd love to get in hear about some of the things that you're working on now. But one of the things that we do on our 76 Capital Leadership Series is we want to really get to know our guests and really hear about, where did they come from? What were the things that, that really shaped them as they grew up? And talk, certainly talk about some of the things that you've done, from winning a national championship at Duke as a freshman, playing all those years, not only basketball, but football, and then going on and, of course, working with President Obama. We want to hear some of those stories and what you're doing now. Yeah. So let's start at the beginning. Let's tell everyone where you grew up. I mean, I've seen it all. I read it all here, and there's some great stories. Love to hear, share that with everybody.
Well, look, I'd say that, first and foremost, for me, I like to tell everyone that I won the lottery when it comes to parents. Richard and Lynette Love, they both turn 68 this year. They've been together since they were 21. And, I have parents who, even though they may not have had, all the means and money in the world, they always, pushed me, supported me, and really kind of held me accountable and held me to a standard that they thought would be representative of the Love family brand, whatever that is, right? There's no trademark or patent on it or anything, but they were very much big in that. And so I can remember I actually was I was talking to my dad on Father's Day, and I said, because they were saying to me how, don't be so hard, you got to be relaxed and easy and everything will be fine. And I said, I was like, who are you people? I was like, when I grew up, there was no negotiation. There was no what do you want? We'll meet you in the middle. It was like, you live here, you're our kid, you're going to do it this way. And my mom said, well, look, we knew that we couldn't negotiate with you because we didn't think you would make the right decision. So we were very, very rigid with you. So I went to a small private school called Providence Day. And ironically enough, with everything that's going on in the world, it was sort of my introduction to really to sort of the racial divide that Charlotte had, and really the socioeconomic divide that existed in the world. I was laughing with a friend that I went to school with at Providence Day, because I said that I saw all these nice cars and homes, but I was like, none of these people play for the Hornets. I was like, what's going on here?
That's wild.
And so I got lucky in that I was able to get in. My parents were able to pay partial tuition, and I went to a school that really focused on academics and really focused on college prep. And when I was in high school, I was a decent athlete, and two-sport athlete, player of the year, all this kind of stuff. But my mom always said, she was like, look, I don't care what people say about you. I don't care what I read about you in the newspaper. Come home and not have a 3.5 GPA. You will not be playing anything. So like, and I always kind of thought she was like kidding, right? Like I was like, come on, Ma. I was like, this is like ridiculous. It's like that's not even the standard to be eligible to play. I was like, and I remember I had like a progress report, and who even like looks at like progress reports really? And she was my junior year, and she like took it, taped it like to the door of my room, and like wrote a little note saying, I hope that you're aware that if this continues, this will be the end of your season. And so I had to pull my grades up, and so look, Providence Day was the best thing to sort of broaden my horizon to what the world had to offer, and as we'll probably get into later on and into our conversation, I was lucky enough to have a chance to follow my dreams, to play collegiate basketball, to have a chance to try out for the Packers and the Cowboys. But kind of in the back of my head, going to Providence Day kind of showed me that there was more to life than sports. I may have wished that there were not, but I was definitely aware that there was more to life than just sports. And I think when I decided that I wasn't going to go back to football after I got released in 2005, that winter of 2006, when I kind of made the decision, I was like, I've had enough football. Providence Day and Duke too really kind of gave me a lot of comfort and a lot of solace in the fact that, like I've gotten a lot from the game, but there's a lot more to do in the world, and I was excited about that. So, and I know that's often like a hard time for people when you've spent so much time like training and working to be a pro or to be the starter, or to be the man, and then for it to come to an end. It's sad, man. It's really sad.
Yeah, it really is. But you were able to take all, the great things that you did, in the classroom as well as on the field and on the court at Providence Day, and take that to Duke. Was Duke your number one choice?
I hate telling this story. Like I said, I grew up in Charlotte, and I grew up in the 90s in Charlotte. And so Antoine Jameson also was from Charlotte, and he went to Providence High, and he was like a god in high school when it came to hoops. And so I like had the high socks, I had like the bald head, and I was like, I wanted to be the next Antoine Jameson, but unfortunately I never got to be 6'8". I was only 6'4.5", but I was a huge Carolina fan. Loved Carolina, loved Antoine Jameson, Jeff McGinnis, Stackhouse. There were all these great guys from the state of North Carolina that played, while I was sort of in my formative years. And so now look, I love Duke. I can't root for Carolina. I only know Duke right now. But as a child, I was a Carolina fan.
Sure.
And
so you ended up on the campus, and what was it like, going onto the campus and then joining a heck of a stacked team as a freshman, right? I mean, and there's a great picture of the locker room, at Cameron Indoor Stadium. I mean, so you come in as a freshman, you have this iconic coach and Coach K, you have a team that's looked to be one of the best teams in the country. And what was that like? And also, as your parents would I'm sure said, you better get some good grades.
Yeah, no, that was part of the deal. Well, look, I think on a couple fronts, I'd say that the first deal I ever really cut was with Carl Franks, who was the football coach at Duke at the time. So when I committed to go to Duke, to be a football player, I said, look, I'm happy to come here, but I want to have the opportunity to walk on to the basketball team. And he said, if you're good enough to play Duke basketball, you go right ahead. And And so I think he believed that I had a very small chance to do such a thing. So for me, when football season ended, it was a tough season. We lost 11 straight games. I think one of our quarterbacks set the record for interceptions in a single game. And I think Carolina beat us almost by 50 points in football. It was refreshing to get to Duke basketball because, as you mentioned, that team was really, really talented. Jason Williams, Mike Dunleavy, Carlos Boozer, Shane Battier, Chris Duhon, Dante Jones, Nate James. I mean, really, a world-class a world-class group of athletes. And so, one, it was great to get a win. Sometimes you just need to get a win in life. And then it was also different because, there wasn't some huge expectation that I was going to be a great player. I was there because I love the game and I love to play and I love to compete. And I think that is also why, Coach K and his staff, eventually made me a captain because, there was this concept of the right way to play the game. And if you play the game the right way, you'll always be competitive, even if you're undersized, don't have more talent. If you're plagued with injuries, if you go out and you play hard, you're always sort of be in a position to potentially win. And not to say that you always would. And so, look, I have to believe that Duke football taught me resilience. It taught me the importance of working hard, even when the odds were against you, and even when you just got your butt kicked the week before, and having to put that out of your mind. And I think at Duke basketball, I really sort of understood the culture of, the small things matter and playing every play. Coach K had these things called efficiency points that he would track, and not just in games and practice. I had no idea what an efficiency point was, but he thought that it was really important to measure all of the intangible things that happen within a game that ultimately give a team an advantage. So, if you set a ball screen or a screen away, someone would track it, mark it down, and count how many of those things you did. If you dove on a loose floor, if you took a charge, if you had a deflection, if you had a screen that led to an open shot, you would actually get counted for an assist. And so it was really this kind of structure that I'd never seen before, in which he wanted people to know that what you do all the time on the court matters. And I think that also is I think that goes back to life, right? We're only going to get a certain amount of plays, and ultimately, at the end of the day, you want to be able to get up in the morning and look yourself in the mirror and say that, look, I left it all out there, and I did everything that I could to be successful. And irrespective of what the outcome is, you'll be able to live with it and be okay with it. And look, and I think when I went to go work in DC, the job that I had was a staff assistant, and staff assistant is, the lowest of low positions. The only person below you is an intern. And I think sometimes people fall in love with the beauty of being in the Senate, and writing legislation, sitting in committee meetings, going to the Senate chambers for votes, being a part of the caucus meetings between Democratic and Republican leadership. There were so many important, visible things that happened when I worked in DC on the Hill, and I wasn't a part of any of them. And I think having had the experience of playing for Duke and understanding this idea that the little things matter, and the standard that you work and prepare for, those are super, super important. And in order to be successful, that like championships, that you don't win championships in March, you actually win them in summer conditioning in June and July, the year before, or in preseason conditioning and preparation and tape watching and playbook assessing and understanding. Like those are the things that ultimately get you there. And so as a staff assistant on the Hill, I was answering mail from constituents, answering phones, sitting in different hearings on behalf of other staff members on our team to take notes about specific issues that might be coming up in a proposed bill, and really just sort of doing the things that weren't very sexy, weren't very out there in public, but ultimately were super important to being able to represent the constituents of Illinois.
Well, it's really great to hear, all the things that you did at Duke, winning a national championship. We're with Reggie Love on our 76 Capital Leadership Series, and we're really happy that you're joining us to hear this Reggie story. It's incredible to hear growing up in North Carolina, going to Duke, winning a national championship, playing football there, playing basketball. And now we were kind of at this, we jumped over a little bit of the, we could talk about the playing with the Packers and Cowboys a little bit, but then, just really incredible. You go to DC, you're a staffer, you're in the Senate, you're running around. There's all these, young people. It's such a interesting time to be there. And then you meet this junior senator, this guy named Barack Obama, that no one has any idea who he is at the time, other than he's this senator from Illinois. And so, how did you get hooked up with him?
Yeah, look. So right when I got released from the Cowboys, I said to myself, I'm not gonna do another. I'm not going to go to NFL Europe. I'm not going to do another summer trying to make a team. And I was going to go work at a bank. I was going to go work at Goldman Sachs. And I kind of had this idea that I went home to North Carolina. Weather is great all the time. I was playing a bunch of golf, and my mom said to me, look, you're not retired. You can't just golf every day. And she was like, you should do something more important. And I said, well, Mom, look, I just dropped 5 strokes off my golf game in the last 5 days. And she was not amused by any stretch of the imagination. And so, I called a friend, Sean Richardson, who was then the chief of staff for Patrick Kennedy, who was a congressional member from the state of Rhode Island. Sean had a really good friend, Mindy Myers, and Mindy at that point in time, or currently Mindy now, was running the Elizabeth Warren campaign and was her chief of staff in the Senate. And at the time, she was working on the Hill as a staffer in the Senate, but she was also living in the basement of Pete Rouse. Pete Rouse was the chief of staff to Barack Obama at the time. He somehow got my resume. I drove to DC. And as you mentioned, Wayne, I got to the Capitol, or to the Hart Building on the Senate side of the Capitol, and there was just so much energy and so much life. And you kind of fall in love with this idea that you can be a part of actually making a difference in the country and in the world. And so I got there. I got the bug. I had an interview with then Senator Obama very briefly. It felt like I'd had no shot of getting the job, because he said, do you want to be in politics? Do you want to run one day? And I kind of said, look, if people think that it makes sense, I might be interested in it. But whereas I think a lot of people were a lot more passionate. It's yeah, I want to run for city council. And
I love how you talked about it in here. It was great. It was great how you described it in the book. It was really amazing. You weren't even sure if you were going to be asked back, right?
I wasn't sure if I was going to even be asked back. And so I get a call the next day. Pete's like, look, we'd love to have you. He was like, your salary is going to be $28,000, no signing bonus, no contract. And it's like, if you decide you want to go play football in Europe in the spring, feel free to go. And so I was like, great, no commitment, sign me up. And I worked for Pete and for Senator Obama and President Obama for most of my young adult life, from the age of 22 to 30. And so I kind of grew up, in the wing of what was probably one of the most transformative periods in modern U.S. history, in which the Democrats went back the Senate in 2006 with the leadership and efforts from really from a lot of Democrats, but specifically Barack Obama, and then then winning the first African American candidate winning the nomination for the Democratic Party, and then being a part of what was the election of the first African American president, and to be thrust into what was one of the largest economic downturns our country had seen since the Great Depression. All of that happened in about 2 years. And so I had a front seat view of all of this sort of happening and unfolding at once. And I think the great part about it is that even though I was young and not really that knowledgeable, I think that then candidate Barack Obama and President Barack Obama always was always in professorial mode, in which he was always willing to teach if you were willing to listen. And I can remember one day we were, and I don't write about this in the book, but it's one of the most powerful things that I remember, which was, it was August of 2008, and Bush and the Senate Republicans were trying to pass what was known as the Troubled Asset Relief Program, which is TARP, to help bail out sort of the banks as they were trying to solve the issue for these mortgage-backed securities. And I was really kind of confused because, Barack Obama's running for president, and this is like nothing more important for the last almost like year and 9 months. The only thing we've been doing is campaigning. And I say to him, after he hangs up the phone with President Bush, and funny story short, President Bush's personal aide is a guy, Jared Weinstein at the time, who was also a Duke alum. So we had like this, funny Duke connection. And I said to Senator Obama, I said, if you were president and the Republicans had, and if you were president and the Republicans had the Senate, they would not work with you to pass this program, in my mind, right? And two, if we don't pass TARP and this financial system collapses, won't that indicate to voters that the Republicans are not the right party to lead the country? And he was like, Reggie, these are really good questions. And, he's very methodical. And he said, I think you're right, but I think you don't see the full picture. And he explained to me that, one, he cared more about what was doing right for those people who would be most affected if there were a collapse in the banking system. It wouldn't be the Jamie Dimons and the John Macks and the Lloyd Blankfeins of the world. It would be the my cousins, the Reggie Loves, the Wayne Kimmells, the small business owner in Illinois, the small business owner in Florida that would not have access to capital, that would be most adversely affected. And that was something that he cared most about trying to fix. And then he said, look, and he said, to your point, he said, it might cost me the chance to be president, but it's the right thing to do. And if that's the cost, I think it's a cost that it's my responsibility to bear. And I think that that perspective and that amount of empathy and that amount of really just like caring for others and not for your own individual mission or own individual goals, I think really showed me what true leadership looked like and what it meant to be a true public servant.
Well, that's beautifully said, and I think many of us wish that certain politicians would put themselves second and the country first during these times that we're in right now. And we're really excited and happy to have Reggie Love on our 76 Capital Leadership Series, giving us a lot of interesting pieces of wisdom and sort of really behind the scenes when he was with, at the time, candidate Barack Obama running for president. I think it's fascinating to see what happens behind the scenes, and maybe so that's some of the things that you could share. One of the pictures that James shared was a picture of you and President Obama at the time. I think it was during the campaign in the back of a private jet. I'll never forget. We were both probably in Iowa around the same time. I happened to be with at Vice President Biden and with his group, and we were in Des Moines, and all the planes were lined up. And at the time, there were two beautiful jets, and that looked like the one that you were on. The other one, I believe, was Hillary Clinton's, and then there were these two tin cans next to us, next to those two, and one of those was for which we went on with at the time Senator Biden. And but it just the stories and the things that if you've never been on a presidential campaign, you've never been out there in the woods, I guess, or just you're in the middle of it all, right? Like what's that like? What are some of those experiences? What was it? What were some of the things that maybe people just won't know from even reading your book? Some other things that you could share with people about the special times that you have on a campaign.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that's a really interesting point. I'd say that I think there's the behind the scenes stuff that's really, really interesting. But I was on a call with Valerie Jarrett the other day. And I think the one thing that campaigns have, especially like if you're on a really good campaign, I think it's almost the closest thing you have to collegiate sports, in which the compensation is minimum or negligent, if at all. The season is long and grueling, and you build some of the closest relationships that you can have through that shared sacrifice and that shared mission and shared goal. I think that is. I think when I think about things I miss in life, like I don't miss Iowa, I don't miss New Hampshire, I don't miss the Harkin steak fry, I don't miss primary days, right? But like I miss the people, and I miss sort of that idea that you're fighting for something that's bigger than yourself, and there's just so much humanity that lives in the process of trying to work for candidates that you believe have a vision and the leadership abilities to bring about change in a country that ultimately, as a whole, is a great country, but also at the same time has been built on policies and even the founding documents that ultimately have not truly always captured the spirit of what we know America can grow to be. That's just really there's nothing better than being a part of that. And I would say that when I think about Providence Day and back to Charlotte, I woke up every day excited about the idea that maybe one day every kid that lives over in North Charlotte can have access to, college-ready education without having to pay, I don't even know, it was $10,000 a year or something in the 90s of what the tuition was. It's probably now almost 28 or 29,000 now. And so those things really, for me, were the part that like kind of made me excited about it. But then, you had all the fun moments, right? I can remember,
you guys played basketball all the time, right? That's all you guys did.
And we talked a lot of trash, so much trash talking. I remember, I there were two funny stories. One, Barack Obama.
Your shot here, is he?
I mean, that's clearly a foul. I mean, Look at that. I mean, he's like taking my space, clearly a foul. I think I conceded to give him that he did block the shot and that there was no referee there to call foul. But we played a lot of hoops and we talked a lot of trash. And Marvin Nicholson used to get he and the president had a really funny interaction right before he was going to go on stage for a rally. The president was sort of off stage, and he's being announced by this local organizer from Milwaukee. And, in all these events, they happen in gyms. And so the president has a girls' basketball in his hand. And we had played basketball a couple of days ago, and Marvin had dropped a couple passes. So the president throws the girls' ball to Marvin, and he says, "Hey, Marvin, here's a girls' ball. Maybe this will help you catch." Totally insulting. And so Marvin kind of goes back and says, at least I didn't get blocked by a 13-year-old, which was the president's nephew, Avery. And as the candidate's being announced to the stage, he goes, "He's 14." And he's furious as he goes on the stage because he's been called out for being dominated by his 14-year-old nephew.
Well, that's the fun of campaigns. Those are the little things that you get to see from behind the scenes that you've got to see so much of. We're so excited to have Reggie Love as our guest in our 76 Capital Leadership Series, sharing amazing stories from his growing up in North Carolina, going to Duke. We have a great picture that we have to share with you, Reggie. You looks like you were on the ground. You're about to. You're taking the ball away from Chris Paul when he was at Wake Forest. So I'll have James send that up there. It's a great one that we were excited to share with you. I mean, it's awesome. Here we go. Here it is. This is.
Yeah. So funny enough, so Chris ended up being being one of the co-presidents of Barack Obama's of President Obama's fitness council on fitness and education, and so has been a really good friend over the years. But in this game, and I still remember this game. So we had lost the game before, and Coach K decided he was not going to start any of the traditional starters. So we started that game with all walk-ons and me and JJ. Wake Forest was ranked in the top 10. It was Chris Paul and Justin Gray were two of the best guards in the ACC at that point in time, points per game and 3-point percentage. And we basically came out that game and beat Wake Forest. I think I even scored a couple buckets on Chris. I give him a hard time about it. He said I'd rather let you score than JJ.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, again, such great stories. And, that also, I think is an interesting point is how relationships, how things happen, right? And how things happen in life, right? I mean, you guys played against each other in college. You're at the White House with the president. You're his personal assistant, then personal aide, right? You're his body guy, body man, depending on who you're talking to, right? And then you got to work with him with Chris Paul in a completely different manner. I mean, that's just amazing.
Yeah, look, life is short and the world is small, and it gets smaller every day as we have more devices and more technology. Who would ever thought that for 5 months you could work for a company and never see anyone in person? Now Zoom and products like StreamYard have basically allowed us to leverage more and more of our networks and more of our past. And I think that also it hopefully will continue to hold us accountable, to make us understand that everything that we do does matter. When I think about what's going on in the world right now with all the tensions around race and culture, I get friends that call me and they say, God, this problem is so large. I had no idea this was going on, that there was this systemic racism and these unconscious bias that are happening throughout the world. And I said, look, welcome to the party. Don't feel overwhelmed, because these things do need to be solved for, but we didn't end up here overnight. And we're not going to get out of this overnight either, right?
So let's real quick on that point. I think I have to ask. I mean, and we'll go back and we'll jump right back into this, but I think it's an interesting thing to talk about. It's inauguration. Well, first of all, I mean, that night in Chicago, election night, was magical. It was a magical night in Chicago. A night I'll never forget. Being out there and then inauguration. It's freezing cold out. I read in your book, it talks about your parents and brought all their friends and everyone, and you're like, Reggie can get us tickets.
Tickets, man. I thought I left those days behind. This is actually a great story. This is the first day as president. Barack Obama's first day as president. I was, all this stuff happens on Inauguration Day. You've got a swearing in, one of the biggest speeches that you give as president, presidential parade, 10 balls, moving into the White House, clearance set up, all the sort of stuff is like going on. And so the next day, it's the first day in the White House, first full day as president. The president comes into my office. And I'm like working, and it's like, I have no idea what I'm working on, but there's like a million things going on. And he comes out and he goes, Reggie, I saw a lot of people yesterday, but I don't remember seeing your parents. And first day as president. And I said, yeah, my parents were there. They had a great job. They had a great time. They thought you did a great job on the speech, and they're really appreciative to be here. And he goes, he said, look, man, I got to see your parents. And I said to him, look, me and my mom were like in a fight right now over tickets. Like, she invited too many people for the house and for how many tickets we had. And I felt terrible and couldn't get more. And he says to me, he says, well, look, Reggie, look, I understand you're mad, but like, I'm the leader of the free world. And I'd like to see your parents. So have them come here to the White House. And so I call my parents on their cell phone, getting their social security numbers to wave them into the White House. And so when they get there, the first lady had walked over and they said to my parents walk in, the first lady walks over, they sit down, they say, oh, so great to have Reggie on the campaign and here in the White House. He's been such a key part to the team. I mean, like all the niceties that any, that I mean, I like to believe they were true, but who knows? Uh, and so they leave. The first lady leaves. My parents leave. I walk them out. I come back to my office, and I'm sitting there. I'm back to work, and the president comes into my office again, and he looks at me and he goes, "Was that so hard?" And me and my feisty self, I'm like, "Yeah, you don't really understand." Like she da da da, and he goes, "No, you don't understand." He was like, "Your parents will not be here forever. You should never miss an opportunity to appreciate them." I lost my mom at a young age. I'd give anything to have her back, and so never forget that. And I've never forgotten it. And so anytime I have a chance to like go home, or we're on the road, I get a postcard, or we're in Asia, I get some I just like, it was a really powerful thing. And, my parents had been like such huge supporters and advocates of mine. And, it was really a touching thing that the first day of his presidency, he wanted me to, understand that there's more to life than the little feuds that we get into over stuff.
Well, there's no doubt about it, and there's we're a week out from Father's Day, and there's my dad over my shoulder. He and my mom I was able to bring to the inauguration and have some really special times with them during that. And
was that 9 or was that 13?
No, in 09. In 09.
In 9. Okay, great. So wait. So what do we think about our good friend Joe Biden? He's got a very cool mask. Do we think, or are we excited for November, or are we worried that we have no idea what November brings for us?
Well, I think we have to be very excited for November. I think we have to be really hopeful that you turned it around on me, Reggie. But truly believe that we need a leader, right? I mean, that's what we're here talking about in our 76 Capital Leadership Series. We need a leader, and that's what I believe Vice President Biden would do as president. With the support, obviously, of President Obama and a lot of the team behind him, I think that's what we need. That's what we need as a country. That's one of the reasons why we're doing this leadership series. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, really to hear your story, sharing the things that you've done in your career as a young man, and done some amazing things. And I think I want to talk about all the times you got to play basketball with Barack Obama, and I want to know where the basketball court is and all the different places you played. But at the same time, you got to, spend, 8 years, from the Senate side, as well as being in the White House, with someone that, calls you his little brother, who is somebody who is really literally someone who changed the world and led. And I believe if we had someone that was truly leading, we wouldn't have so many deaths in this country right now. We wouldn't have the terrible racial divide that we have. We would have someone that's truly respects and is respectful of others. And that's something that is everything to us. It's why when we invest in companies, we partner with them, we work with our entrepreneurs, we respect them, we care about them, we want to make them better. And I think that's what, you got to see. You had a front row seat all of those years with this man.
Yeah, look, and I will say this, and I've heard him say it so many times, and not to be overly political, but the one thing that I do want everyone to believe and to buy into is that our voices matter. They always matter, and in the points in time when we feel like we're being unheard, like that's the point in time in which our voice matters even more. And the idea that somehow that our voices don't matter, it sickens me. And as we go into the fall, it's going to be even harder to have our voices expressed. We're going to have to be organized. People are going to have to vote early. They're going to have to vote by mail. They're going to have to get registered earlier. They're probably going to have to wait in longer lines. And even though that will be the case, and it will be more challenging to do, now more than ever, it's even more important to do so. And without voices like yours and voices like mine, we never have a Barack Obama. We never have that compassion. We never have that leadership. We never have the opportunity to see what it means to be not only a commander in chief and a leader, but also to be a good father, a good husband, a good member of the community, someone who's empathetic and listens. Those are the things that we've got to be hungry for, and we've got to, really want to spend our time and energy being organized around this upcoming November, because it's going to be harder to vote in November than it has ever been in the history of this country. And we got to be ready for it.
And there's no doubt about that. And those are the kind of things that we all need to make sure that because look, we live in, regardless of all this, we live in the greatest country in the world, and we got to keep it that way. And we got to keep, and it's our responsibility. It's our generation. We're the ones that need to go make sure that this all happens now. And, so on that note, I mean, what to you, what were some of the things that maybe some moments that within your career that so far that you're personally most proudest of, that you got a chance to be involved with?
I mean, look, I would say that the thing that I'm probably the most proud of for our country, and it wasn't my policy, I mean, but the way that Barack Obama fought to get the Affordable Care Act passed, to create a new floor of what it means to have health care for Americans, that people can not become terminally ill and spend more time worried about how they're going to pay their bills than they are figuring out how they're going to live out the last few days of their life. Like that, I think that is by far the most important thing. And even now, even the people people love the Affordable Care Act, but they don't like Obamacare. I think this idea that there is a baseline of healthcare for every single person in this country is by far the most important thing that I'm proud of. And look, there's so many things I'm lucky to have been a part of. I tell this moment when one Saturday afternoon we got called in to be the substitute coach for Sasha's middle school basketball or grade school basketball team, and to see Maisie Biden and Sasha run the pick and roll as like fifth graders, it's like nothing more satisfying, right? It's like, oh my God, it's like in the right direction. They make the layup. It's just, the little things like that. And look, I got an experience to be more appreciative of things that I probably didn't have a greater appreciation for. Barack Obama visited a military hospital every month. He would visit one, and he would visit every person in the hospital when he would go, and it would take 3-4 hours, and I would go to every single one of these, and I'm super proud of how much sacrifice goes in to protect democracy and to protect the borders of this country. So many people that sacrifice themselves and their lives to make this American dream happen. I think, always makes me inspired and proud about, not only where we are today as a country, but where we can end up.
You look at this picture that we just had on the screen, and you have the president here, in crowds around people, and then you think about the world we're in today, where it's unfortunately it's not safe. It's not safe right now. This young girl, right? It would not be safe for her to be in this kind of a setting today. What are your thoughts about that? And how it's crazy. We're in the middle of a presidential campaign where this stuff is just it was the norm, right? It was but now you can't do that because it's just not the right thing to do. It's just not safe.
Well, look, I mean, I'm not going to get into the specifics or the policies around why we are where we are today as a country, because look, who knows if this could have been handled better and what the impact would have been. But what I do know is that, look, we live in a global world. Like, there's no wall we can build to keep out contagious infections or viruses. There's no wall we can build to keep out ideas and thoughts that are global from around the world. And what I think is that, look, twofold, two main points. One, it's a global world we live in, and we have to govern and lead as leaders of a global world. And we are not going to become more detached from other countries and other nations. We're only going to be drawn closer and closer, and that's something that we really have to be cognizant of going forward in the future. And two, that picture is such an iconic picture that shows the energy and passion that was around what I think was one of the greatest political movements that we've seen in a generation. And that energy and that passion, we can't, just because we're in a pandemic and just because it's not safe, we can't let ourselves believe that that energy and that passion can't exist, and that energy and passion needs to be present as we start preparing to head into the fall and for this upcoming general election. And so those are really the two things. Globalization is here; we're never going back. And two, like let's make sure that we can find that energy so that we can continue to. So that we can fight to get the right type of leadership this country needs.
Absolutely. And right now, you're the vice president and head of external affairs for HRS management. Certainly Josh Harris and what he's done, is someone who has certainly done things on a global scale. How are you enjoying your life at HRS?
Look, man, I'm lucky to be on the team. I really do think that Josh has built what I believe to be some of the most impressive platforms that we've seen in financial services and sports and entertainment. And I think the platform that he's built, I think, will continue to be able to transform not only the industry of financial services, but I think the sports platform will be able to transform communities. He's a steward of these very important community assets that are staples and symbols of hope and opportunity for so many people. And so, I'm lucky that he sees that and he values that, and is really focused on not only how to win championships, but also how to build up communities and how to build up neighborhoods so that, we can all, so that everyone can feel like they can access the American dream.
That's great. Well, look, I wish you a ton of luck there. This is our 76 Capital Leadership Series. We've had Reggie Love with us. It's been really great having you. And I got to ask you one last thing, because at the very, very end of your book, I love this one part. You talked about in your book, there was a special basketball game This is page 191 in your book, and it talks about it was for I think it was the president's 49th birthday. You want to share with everyone what happened at that day?
I mean, there were so many great stories from that day. I mean, Dwayne Wade doesn't like me to tell the story, but Maya Moore rips Dwayne Wade in the open court, goes down, and like hits the silkiest jumper you've ever seen. And then I don't like to tell this story because it's really embarrassing to me, which is that, Shane Battier, who was the captain of the 2001 Duke basketball team that won a national championship, my freshman year, my first day of practice, I go out and we're doing like some drill, some box out drill. Coach shoots the ball, it goes up. I jump, I like dunk the ball back in the goal. And Shane Battier is like underneath this play, and the gym like goes quiet. I was like, and that was the last play I ever made that entire year. For the rest of the year, Shane literally dogged me out. And fast forward to 2011 for the 49th birthday for Barack Obama, and Shane is one of the participants playing in the game, and it's like Chauncey Billups, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, Kobe Bryant. He was there but didn't play because he just had surgery. LeBron James, you name it, everyone's there. And I get a steal. I'm wide open. I'm like going up for a layup, and Shane's not guarding me. He's on the other team, and he literally comes from across the floor all the way to me, blocks my shot, and then basically yells out like, "Anybody but Love." Still holding a grudge against me for almost 2 decades. And all of the president's friends are kind of like, it was like, man, he really must not like you. And it's like, but Shane's like a brother to me. His younger brother, Jeremy, and I were college roommates. We played the same position in college. And so, I have been lucky to have a bunch of really good guys to always sort of take me under their wing and to show me the way. And, and I think I've always felt the need to do that, the same thing myself. So, as much as I've been able to have people show me the way, I feel just as much of the obligation to try to show as many people the way as they're on their path and on their journey.
Well, this has really been awesome. You've done so many incredible things, from playing at Duke, winning a national championship, playing football, going to DC, working with President Barack Obama, doing so many incredible things with him. Now doing amazing things with Josh Harris and his team. I'm guessing that you got a lot more things that we'll be doing. We're going to be seeing from you in the future, and hopefully we get a chance to work together, because the way that you look at the world and the way we view the world at 76 Capital, we definitely see this opportunity of working with the right kinds of people to really try to make this world a better place. And I'm thrilled to have had you on our show, and wish you the best of luck. Stay healthy, and obviously stay safe. And we got a lot of work to do over the next few months.
A lot of work, and you guys keep up the great work as well, Wayne. And thank you for having me on. And we should definitely partner up. And next time we are meeting in person, I look forward to getting a chance to break some bread together.
Well, thank you so much. Again, this is Wayne Kimmel for our 76 Capital Leadership Series, and Reggie Love. Thank you so much. Have a great day.